Yeah, so like I was explaining, you need to, if you want to build a database, you need to know you need to know data types, basically. You need to be able to, when you come across, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Right. So when you come across something like an address ID, you need to know the type of data that it is. And then you also need to know whether to fix this as a null value, whether it can, in the absence of this, whether this can take a null value or not a null value, right? You need to know those things. So that's what we want to, in fact, we will be doing once we clear with the data types, then we would go into see if we can if we have time, we will go into see if we can build a database and see or create a database. Right. So let me see data types. There are quite a few data types, quite a few, but we'll be looking at four main ones and maybe four other subordinate ones, but there are quite a few. So the first one, who can tell us what the first one is? Common, the most common one? Yeah, I've already started typing it, so you should have an idea. And the next one is numeric. The next one is what is called the Boolean. And the next is date. These are the four main types. Subordinate ones. When I say subordinate, I mean in terms of database. But in other fields, they could be the main ones. So others that we'll be looking at briefly, we just maybe mention them. We have XML. We have what is called character large objects. We have binary large objects. And we have JSON. Who is a BA here? Who is also a BA? That means you're a BA, right? That means gone.
We
Okay.
both are.
Yeah, yeah, we both are.
Both of
I was
us.
trying to
Oh, you
mute.
both are. Right.
Yeah.
Have you done anything at all with JSON? Who is on job rater?
Neither of us. Oh, not me anyway. Let me speak for myself. I'm not on.
Pardon?
I'm
I'm
not
not. No, I'm
on.
not.
Oh, all right, okay. So
Neither.
BAs in job rater. I'm on job rater, so I know BAs on job rater have had some interaction with JSON language. Uh, Not that they do anything with it, but they use the kind of when they're writing stories, they kind of have to write stories to make QAs to tell QAs which JSON um, commands, and which what to use, basically. So that would have, if you were, then you would have had an idea, brief idea of what the language looks like. It's just plain English, actually, but written in a funny way. So let's look at the first one. As we all know, we've come across strings. We have actually come across strings, and we've used it several times. Now, so strings are characters which could be of variable length. Characters of variable A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, X, Y, Z, Z. Put all characters together. So um, all these words that I have written here are strings. All these can be classed as strings. Everything here, right? So they are basically characters of variable length, and so we call them. If you look at these, you see we have varchar. So they are classed as varchar. Varchar. Variable length strings, and these can take characters of up to 8,000. They can take varchar. This varchar type of character can take up to 8,000 bytes of computing space. So each character takes memory space of 1 byte. So when here, for example, say varchar 40, that means that we've allocated to this address line uh, 40 bytes. That's simply what it means. Right. And then we also have the end varchar. Now, the end varchar it takes characters of up to 4,000, character length up to 4,000. Character length 4,000. What are they used for? And why do we have the end varchar? Now, English, the English language or English characters are predominantly the characters um, that are used in most text documents. However, there are other languages as well. There is Chinese, there is Arabic, there's Russian. There are a whole range of other languages which do not have the English-like character structure. Now, that is what the NVACA is for. What that does is that, so with that, it is able to, for example, if you want to do something in Chinese, you cannot use the varchar to um, to characterize Chinese characters. What you need to use is the end varchar, right? So that is what that is for. But it's not like it cannot handle English. It can handle both English, and other characters. But predominantly, it is for the other characters which are non-English like. Right. Then we have what is called just the car. And this is just a single character in English language. Single character. So if I just want to show the letter A or letter B or the letter Z, I'll just use car. Right. So this is the description for what you see here, this kind of things that you see here. That's what these mean. So for example, if I want to, if I say select, right? I've not chosen a database, right? Um, there's no point really. Um, okay, let me choose this. Select first name. Remember, we used the keyword cast some time ago. If I want to say specifically that it should show me the first name of somebody, and I want to specify exactly how many characters of that first name. For example, who and who do I have here? Who and who do I have here? Is it Temidayo? No, I have Temidayo and who? And Damola, right?
I'm Temi, not Temidayo,
Oh, you're Temi. Okay.
and then Damisola.
You're right. And Damisola. So let's say, for example, Damisola, how many characters is that? Damisola,
Eight characters.
8 characters. So assuming, for example, I just want the first 4 characters of your name, right? Dami, right? I can just say, okay, cast the first name, just show the first 4 characters. So I say forwarding as either varchar or end varchar, doesn't matter. And then I say 4. So that would just show the first 4 characters of your name if I happen to select that from a database that has your name. You get my drift. So this is one example of that. Okay. In much the same way, if I want to specify 30 characters, then all I do is just make this 30 characters. It will show up to 30 characters of your name. And also, if I just want to show, for example, gender, we know gender to be what? Either male or female, usually represented as M or F, right? So in that particular case, which of these shall we use? Which of these shall we use?
I'm taking a char. I think the char is single character length.
Use the single character. We use the single character. Okay, so these are examples. And so you see that all these things usually are texts, right? Texts. Now, so all strings are all text characters. And as a matter of fact, we can have up to 2 billion, over 2 billion. The exact number is something in the range of 1, 2, 147. 647 characters. Okay, let's go to the second one, numeric. Numeric. We have quite a few under this too. Numeric. We have what is called exact numeric. Exact numeric. We have the next one is what is known as tiny int. Tiny int. And this tiny int takes up to it's characters from number 0 to 255. Tiny int. Usually, numbers between this range are also represented just as int. So int also works well for tiny int. Then we have what is also known as small int. Small int. And this is for numbers in the range between negative, let me put this in bracket so the negative sign doesn't look like a hyphen. Negative 32,768 up to negative 65,535. Then we have int. Int can take anything up to anything at all, any whole number up to 8 billion. 147. Then there is what is known as big int. Big int. Now, this will take any number of characters. Any number of numeric characters. Up to 2 raised to the power 63. That is a very huge number. 2 raised to the power 63 to 2 raised to the power 63 minus 1. Okay, so this is from negative to positive. Again, let me put this in bracket. Two raised to power 63 minus 1. And I'm not sure if anybody can write this number out, but this is a really, really huge number. And it is like, oh, let me just read this out from here. This is 9223036 854 775 808. So that's minus 1. So that will be 7. Right. So let's see how we can use examples of this, of this thing. Example, if I say select and I want to cast something, I can cast number 1 as tiny int. And it would work perfectly. Why will it work? Because 1 falls between 0 and 255. So this would be okay. However, if I were to do the same thing, and I say select 260 as tiny int, will this work? It won't work because 260 is outside of this range. If you like, you can run this on your systems, and you see that when you run this query, you will get an error. Let me run it. Let me just run this and see. Let's see. Let's make sure. That has given us an error, right? Arithmetic overflow. Data type tiny int value is equal to 260. It's telling you exactly what is wrong. If we run this, however, it would work because it falls within that range. This has given us the number 1. So anything between 0 and 255 would work. Now, this is the hard part of database creation, simply because you need to know what data types you are working with and what those data types can and cannot take. And that is also the very boring part of it. Once we are done with that, then it should be quite simple to follow. Let's see if we can have other ones. Select cast 20,000 as small int. 20,000 as small int. Does 20,000 fall within this range? Does it fall within this range? Let's see if this would run. Yes, it will run. Why? Because it's within that range. Oh, this is positive, sorry. It's within that range. And it's much the same way if we run this as simply int. Let's see if it would run. If we run it simply as int, it will still run because, like I said, int takes up to this value. So yes, it would run. Then we have what is called numeric decimal. Numeric decimal. So let's use an example of this. Select, let's say cast. Let's divide 22.5 by 1.1 as numeric. And let's set the output figures as 8 digits, 2 decimal places. Let's see what happens to this. This gives us that thing here. So here we have, so essentially what is done is if the integral part, if the integer part of the result was more than 2 characters, it would have given us any number of characters up to 8 characters. And then this is the number of decimal places we have asked it to give us a result to. So let's look at another one. Let's say we have 39.4, say, divided by 2.3. As numeric, we want 7 characters, 7 whole number characters up to, and then we want up to 4 decimal places. So this basically is showing the number of precision points that we require in our results. So you see, it has given us a result up to 4 decimal places. Hope you get the drift now. There is another another numeric type called float. I believe we've all come across floats by now. Floats. Float is also decimal. And we can have an example of that as select and cast. One, two, three, 4. Point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as float. And let's see what that would give us. Whether it will return the whole thing or it will set it to a particular number of characters. So this just returns the whole result. Now, if we were to say, do this instead, what will this give us? So a float basically is decimal. Let's see what this will give us. It gives us the integer part only. Then we have Boolean. I'm also sure you all know what Boolean is. Now, Boolean is either true or false. It's either 1. In computing terms, it is 1 or 0. And it could also be yes or no. That is what the Boolean character type is. Is that okay? Now, each character type, TF10YN, each one is a bit. So that if we say select and I cast 1 as bit, it gives me 1. It works perfectly. What would happen if we say 200? Would that work? Let's see. You see what has happened? See what has happened here? Damisola. Do I still have my people? Okay, I still have them. Right. So though we have 200 here, we've asked it to cast 200 as a bit. A bit can only be one of these. TF10YN. So it's seen that we want to write this as a number. So it disregards the number 200 and returns 1.
Sorry, Godwin.
Yep.
Sorry, why didn't it return 0? Why did it select 1?
Because it sees that there is a number there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You get that? Okay,
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you.
cool. The next is date. And we already know how date works. We say select, get date, and we ask it to cast get date as date. Let's see what is going to happen here. So that's today's date, which is given us as this. It first of all returned it as this with all the milliseconds, and then rounded it up as just the date. So when we just run get date, what we would have would be everything with the up to the milliseconds, but we've just asked it to give us just the date part of that. In the same way, we can just ask it to give us the time part. It is still giving us this. Has it given us a time? It didn't give us the time part. What's the time now? The time is 22:08. What has happened? 22:08. Okay, I think we should have used one of the other, what is it called? One of the other these things that we used to get. Where is this? You remember the numbers that we used when we did dates? the last lesson from 100 to 114. I don't know which one of them gives us just the time. So that would have given us just the time bit of it. So this is not going to work here. Let me take it out. Now the others, let's look at others. The others that we have. So briefly, let's look at those ones. XML is simply, what is it called? Is it something markup language? Let me just do that. It's a markup language, XML. Extensible markup language. Extensible markup language used for text files. We wouldn't be looking at that. We wouldn't do that anyway. So let's just do that for briefly, but just so you have an idea. Text or XML files. CLOB. I said this is what character large objects. These are actually large objects for like pictures and stuff. Then we have binary large objects. Each of these can take up to 2 gigs of data. Each of these, which is quite very large. Each of these can take up to 2 gigs of data. Then we have JSON. Again, we are not going to talk about these ones. This is for storing JSON data. Right. So basically, this brings us to an end of data types. We are now going to look at, oops. I didn't want to execute. I don't know why I executed. Anyway, no worries. Right. We want to learn how to create databases. And I want you all to just open your SQL Server, Management Studio, and then we will do this together. I've already created my one, so I will just direct you as to how to create your ones.
Godwin.
Yep.
Sorry,
Yeah.
apologies. My device, which I've got the sickle, is crashing on me at the moment. So, and the other one device has not had my sickle fully installed. So I'll just be listening and watching. If that's okay, I do
Yeah, it's
apologize
fine. It's
about
fine.
that.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
Before we can do anything inside a database, we need to create the database. Before we can input any data into it, we need to have the system. Let me call it the container that would have the data. So let's first of all create the database. And what is the syntax for that? The syntax for that simply is create database and then the database name. That simply is the syntax for it. Create the database and the database name. So I just today, before I started this lesson, created my one and I called it example DB. So for example, if I want to create that database, what I would do is just write this. What did I call it? I called it example DB. That is what I want to call this my database. You can call yours whatever you like. Right? If you execute this, you should have a database created. So it's very simple to do. However, that is not the end of the story. Damisola, have you been able to create your database? Should just take that. Damisola, is she here? But maybe you get my drift, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if you create your database, what is the next thing to do? You would see that a database has tables in it. So then you will need to create a table. into your database. So you would then change once you've created your database, you change your database source to your database that you have created, and then you would create a table. Right. So now we want to create a table, right? And the syntax for that goes like this. Create table, table name. Create table, table name. And then you specify the attributes. Attributes. That is the column headers. Right. So the general syntax for that. Actually, I have that already here. Let me just copy it and paste for you guys. Create a table, table name, then you specify the columns. Column one, what is the data type? That brings us again to your knowledge of data types. You need to specify what data type it is, right? And then that sort of thing. So let's look at an example. Again, let me just go and copy it and bring it down for you. Example. So here, what do we want to create? We want to create a table called persons. We want to create a table called persons. Now, these are underlined because they are already in the database, so don't worry about the underlining. We want to create a table called persons. The person ID is int data type. Last name is varchar, and it can take up to 255 characters. Same for first name, address, and city. That is what this is simply saying. So if we were to run this, I've already run it, so I'm not going to run it again. Somebody else should do that. Because if I run it, it will tell me that I already have it in my, I can show you that I've already run it and it's there in my tables. You see, database objects persons. I've already created it here. And you can see it specifies within the table exactly what I have told it to do here. It specifies exactly what I've told it to do here. And as a matter of fact, I think I've even made a slight error here. I would rather change this to not null. The person ID, I will change it to not null because I intend that. Why would I do that? I intend for that to be the primary key. Now, a primary key cannot be null. So I need to change this to not null. You get that? I need to change that to not null so that it doesn't take a null. It doesn't is that it does not assume that there is nothing there. Primary key should always have a value. Then the next example, another example that I have that I want you to is this one. This is another example. You can create this one too, because we are actually going to populate this. We are going to, I've not yet populated the first one. I've not populated this one, but I would want us to populate this so you see how it works. Don't worry, these are not errors. They are there for a reason. So you see, like in this one, I've specified customer ID is int, not null, because it's what? Primary key. It should not be null. Primary key cannot be null. So once you have created your table, it can now be populated with data. Now, how do you populate your table with data? So for example, all these ones here, the table here, for example, the tables here that we see, that we work with every time, they have been populated with data, which is why we are able to work with them. So if I were to run this now, it is just the basic structure that you would see. You wouldn't see anything. No, I can't run it because it is already there in the system. But if I run it now, you would see to tell me it's already there. It's already there. Okay, there's even a syntax error on line 36. What is the syntax error? Line 36. Okay, this should not be there. So if I run this, it will tell me it's already there in the table. Oh, okay, it is still running. I see. I hope it hasn't created another customers table. Oh my days. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, let me see. I wasn't expecting it to create another one actually, but let me just see. Example, customer tables. Don't create another table for me. Okay, fortunately, it didn't create another one. It didn't create another. So it just went over it just, well, probably the previous one got overwritten. That is what I suspected. I suspect happened. So what might possibly be happening now is that this table may actually not contain anything now. Oh dear. So I have to populate it again. Now I'm going to give you this code. To populate, you just insert. Usually it's good to have a set of data that you want to insert. If you don't have, then it means you have to be scratching your head for data. And also the data must be in a way and a format that you can easily harvest and then insert. So for example, look at how the table is created. Let me select, let me call this. Select all. From the table is called customers. So let's do that. Let's see what we're gonna get from here. Let's see if it will produce anything at all. Let's see if I still have my data in there. Oh, it's there. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to populate it again. Okay. So I'm going to give you this data which you would use in populating your table. Now you would see that the table follows a specific format. The column ID, the customer ID, customer name, contact name, address, city, postcode, country. When you want to insert, you must arrange your data in this particular manner. You can insert a selected number. So there are two ways by which you can insert data into a table. If, for example, I already have the database and the columns are just customer ID, customer name, contact name, address, city, postcode. For example, I don't want to enter the customer name, but I just want to enter the customer number. what will I do? In the selection statement, I specify those columns that I want to populate. So let's see the syntax before we go on, so that it makes sense. Let's see the syntax for the insert statement. 𝐂𝐓. So inserting data, let's see. Let me just copy that one too for you. This is the syntax to insert. So insert into table name. Specify the columns that you want to insert. If it is into every column, most times you just give the table name. You may not specify the columns. But if you want specific columns, you would have to specify the columns. Now, if you specify the columns, it doesn't mean that if you want to enter into each column, you could still specify the columns as we have in this case, right? You could still do that. So let's see a real example. A real example, let me give you this data. You just copy this and paste into your server and run it. So this is the data. I just created this data today. Insert into customers. The table we have created is a table called what? Customers. Right? Remember we created this table customers. Create table customers. Insert into customers. This, that, with customer, with the values. So the first here, these values here represent customer ID. These values here represent customer name. These represent customer contact name in that order. Now, between values, you put a comma. Values that are integers, you write them just as integers as this. Values that are strings need to be put in quotation marks. Strings need to be put in quotation marks. Values that are integers do not need quotation marks. There should be commas between values. Okay? So when you have done that and you run, you click on execute, this will now populate the table that you have created here. The table you have created here will be populated. If you like, before you populate, before you execute, you can just run this command. Before you execute, run this command, and then you would see that all you will get from that exercise will be the column headers. That is all you will get. Simply to tell you that a table has been created. It has the various attributes, but it has no values. Now, but after you have inserted values, if you run it again, if you execute this same command again, you would get what is here. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? If you have more data you want to input, you still can use this same command to insert. So assuming I have 1 million rows of data, all I need to do is to keep adding these values, and then I will just insert. I could also use the, no, I wouldn't use updates. Updates will normally make some changes. So I'll just use the insert to do that. Any questions? No questions. Let's see if we can continue. Now, when you have created a table, there are a number of things you can do. But these things too, you shouldn't do unless you have administrative privileges, and unless you have very good reason to do so. Remember when we started this whole thing, I made mention of some words. One of them is update. The other one is drop. In fact, drop. Now before drop, let me say delete and then drop. Remember these. Remember these keywords. Update simply updates the table. So, for example, if you want to make a change, if, for example, If, for example, this customer, Consolidated Holdings, if they have stopped trading, Consolidated Holdings, as you can see here, is a company in London, right? It's in London. So assuming that Consolidated Holdings has closed business in London and has moved to, say, Germany. And I want to update this database. Which of these attributes will I change? Just London. I'll change London. Instead of London, what would I use? I'll use Germany, right? So, what is it that I want to change? Who can tell us?
They're changing the address, right?
Which part of the address? Okay,
The city
I'm changing just the city.
and the country, but the country.
Yeah, I can change it. Yeah, I can change
Actually,
the country too.
yeah.
Yeah. I want to
Yeah.
change it. So, for
Yeah.
example, they've moved to Berlin, which is in Germany.
Mm.
I'm changing the city, I'm changing the country. So I want to update this database.
And in the
That is,
country.
pardon? Did you say something?
Oh, sorry, nothing's.
Okay. So that is when we use the
No.
word update, the keyword update, right? That's when we use the keyword update. So again, for the sake of time, let me just copy that and drop it here for you. Update. Where did I have update? Syntax for update statement. Okay, let me copy the whole thing there. Let me first uncomment this and let's talk about it. Then I can comment it back. When you use this kind of commenting syntax, you need to be the one to take it out yourself. So when you want to update, what do you do? Update? Which table do you want to update? Update the table. After update statement, you select the table name. The table name that we want to update here is what? The table called customers. That is the table that we have just created. We want to update that one. What do we want to change? Which values do we want to change? So in the example that we just described, say set, this one is general, right? That's why it says set column one value that. But critically, if we come here, updates customers, set contact name to that and city to that. Updates customers, set contact name. It has said we should set contact name and city. So in that particular example, in this particular example that we have here on this canvas, it's asking us to update contact name and city. Contact name, and city. But the example that we spoke about earlier, we wanted to update what? City and country. So it's up to you to choose, depending on the scenario you have, you choose what you want to update. You make that call as to what you want to update. Most important, however, is this where condition. And this is very, very, very critical. This where condition is very critical, and it's not something that should be joked with. Why? If you do not specify, or if you do not specify this condition, everything in the table will be updated to these set values. So, assuming I just said update customers, set customer name to Alfred, city to Frankfurt, what is going to happen? Here you see that we have customer name. It's no contact name. You see that we have contact name Maria, Anna, Hannah, Elizabeth, Howard. And then we have city to what? As what? Berlin, Mexico, Mannheim, London, Eugene. What is going to happen here is that all of these will change to Alfred. I don't know how to pronounce this. All of these will change to Alfred Smith or whatever it is. And then all the cities here will change to Frankfurt. And that is why it is important for you to specify this condition. It's not a condition that must be ignored. So in this whole statement, the most important part of it is actually that condition. Which of these do you want to change? That is where the customer ID, so you select the customer ID, because where customer ID is 1. So if customer ID is 1, it is going to act only on this row, where the customer ID is 1. If I ask it to work on customer ID 4, it is going to only act on this. So that is very important. Right? Okay. So I can comment these ones out. The next is delete. Same thing for delete. Again, I think I have delete already here. Let me see. Updates, delete. Yeah, I have delete already. No point wasting time. Let me just copy it and paste for you guys. Okay, so this is the syntax for the delete statement. Select from table name where condition. Okay, so it pretty much follows the same thing. Again, you need to be careful with your where condition. If you do not specify specify what it is that you want to delete, you would end up deleting all records in the table. If you omit the where clause, all records will be deleted. So, for example, here, delete from customers, where customer name is that. Where customer name is that. So is there a place where customer name is this? I think that's it. So it's going to delete this one. It's going to delete this record. Okay, if we run this, it's going to delete that. I don't want to do that. But you can insert data and then delete it. Practice. You can use that as practice to practice yourselves. Then we go to drop. Remember, I said right from the beginning that drop is a word that we should not use, unless, of course, we want to get rid of the database. So delete works on the table. It works on rows of the table. Drop works on the database itself. So if you use the word drop, so for example, if I were to, for example, say drop, customer name is what? Drop table customers. The table, this database that I have spent time to create will be completely, totally, irretrievably deleted from the database. Once you drop a database, you cannot retrieve it. So if you want to drop a database, you must have very, very good reason to do so. Is that okay? You must have very good reason to do so. Let me take these out because I've just used the other one. And I haven't got drop ready, so let me just write that. Let me just get that one written down for us. Delete statement, drop statement. Drop statement. Do I have it? I doubt. Let me see. Drop. Okay, I think that's what is here. That's just a one line actually. Drop table customers. No, I can't drop table. This is not the right thing. Need to drop the whole database. This is not right. Okay, I don't have drop. So we want to drop. Drop statement works on the database itself, not on the tables. Not on the table. So I cannot drop, for example, the tables we have here. Where are they? Okay. Customers and what else? Persons. customers and persons. Those are the tables we have. I cannot drop any of these. I would rather drop what? The database itself. So drop database. Syntax is database name. That's all. Database name. Drop database name and run, and then that database will be dropped off the system. So example, and I would not advise you to do this unless you want to do more work. Unless you want to do some more work, I won't advise you to drop that database. Drop. What is the database name? Example DB. Drop example DB. That will drop that database completely off the system. Any questions? Tammy, any questions?
No, Godwin, I think I'm really saturated at the moment. No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. So at least, and the reason why I decided to teach this part, like I said, as data analyst, you probably are not required to do these things. You work on the data that you have been provided with. But I realize that you get into some organizations where their data is seriously disorganized. They probably even don't have any data at all. And then they ask you, can you help us with our data? You say you are a data analyst. So they expect you. It's not like they are paying you to do that bit of the work, but even for yourself, you start wondering, how am I going to go about this? And we've actually had an example in the advance previously where one of the guys who came out of the data internship faced that problem because he was quite vocal. So when they finished, they just asked him, "Can you create database? Can you create our database for what is it, for BlueSky?" And the guy was actually lost because he didn't know how to create a database. He didn't know, right? So based upon that, I just decided, okay, let me just add this bit to the class. Let me just add this bit to the class. So actually, this is the very first time I'm teaching this part of from creating to drop. This is the first time I'm teaching it. There are no questions. We would then say have a very good night, and then we meet maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Is there this